To our conversation this Friday on Estate Tax Sunset 2026, things that you need to know going forward. So there are definitely things that everybody who is on this call live or watching it later needs to know. It's not just, hey, this is for only those that are super wealthy. That's not me. This is affects everybody, and everybody needs to know about it. So if you're on this, watching this, and you're saying, hey, geez, this might affect some of my clients, if you're one of our referral partners, or you're saying, I don't know that this would necessarily affect me, or this would affect me, but it's not going to affect my kids or other people I know. No, it's going to affect everybody. So, and I'm going to explain why today. So, for those of you, many of you are, I can see already, they're here, know who I am, and those that are watching later, in case you don't and you're new to this and us, my name's Kevin Snyder. I'm an estate planning elder law attorney at Snyder Law. We help families plan to protect what matters most to them, and in our universe, of course, in doing so is ensuring that assets, no matter how large or small, are protected from the man, the tax man. So today we're going to talk about the big man, the IRS, and what you need to know moving forward this year to make the moves that you might want to make to protect your assets from the man. So this is what we're going to learn today. Key takeaways are right here on the board. We want to understand, of course, what the proposed changes are, and we're going to do a little level set at the beginning to make sure that you know where we are today. And it's important to know where we need to head, but you have to know where we are today. So we're going to do a little of that. We're going to talk about key provisions in legislation. So what's out there now, if you're reading the New York Times, LA Times, Orange County Register, any journal that you're reading, newspaper, magazine, they're talking about some tax reform. What does that mean? What's going on? What are the things that are actually being proposed, not just talked about anymore, but are actually in writing going through the legislature? What's that going to mean? So our potential impact, what is on the road ahead. So we're going to put my great Carnax hat on for those of you that might remember Jimmy Carson, that we're going to put my great Carnax hat on, and I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight of what I think the road ahead is so that you know what your actionable steps are. So when it says actionable steps for clients, like if you're a client of ours watching this, then that's what we're talking to you about. If you're not a current client, maybe you like to be one. This is for you, and of course, our referral partners. This is for your clients, and hopefully, we can help them out. So that's what we're going to go through for our time today. And my hope is that at the end that we've hit on all of these things. So my promise to you is that we'll get you there, and we'll land the plane on time. Those of you that know me said, yeah, Kevin, you're a lawyer, you talk a lot. I'll take that bet. So that's my promise and challenge to myself, is that we're going to land this plane on time today, but yet you're still going to be brimming with information. So let's level set. What are the major changes on the horizon? Well, first of all, okay, where are we right now? So when we're talking about the sunset, right? Before, if you were on earlier, I was talking about the sunset this Friday or today, Friday, and it's beautiful. We're not talking about those sunsets. When we talk about a sunset, when we talk about that in the scope of the law and in tax law, we're talking about the ending of something. All right, so something is going to end, and then it's going to go back to the way it was. So that means the current law, and this is a mistake I hear often, and I even hear lawyers say, is there's no change in the law. What the law says is that the numbers are going to go back to the way they were. That's the sunset. So back in 2017, the Republicans passed this Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that said, hey, look, we're going to make some changes in the tax law. And the changes are these, and we're going to lower the income tax brackets a little bit, and we're going to change the exemptions or lifetime giving exemptions for a lifetime or estate tax. So really, the short of it is they were playing around with the thresholds for the death tax, to use plain speak. So our thresholds used to be 5 million adjusted each year for inflation. 2017's law said as of January 1st, 2018, we're going to double that to 10 million plus inflation. What that means for numbers where we are today, that means that we are at for an individual, we're at 13.99 million is the level. All right. So what that means is you pass away having not made any gifts, reportable gifts during your life, and you pass away and your estate value is under 13.99 million, then there's no estate tax. However, if the value of your estate is above, and I say yours, if you're married, that's if it's above your separate property and one half community property interest is above 13.99 million, then guess what? There might be an estate tax in that situation, and the tax will be applied on the amounts over the overage over 13.99. So let's just use round numbers, 14. So anything over 14 will be taxed. Let's say, well, if it's 15 million, that means $1 million of value will be taxed at 40%. So we have a $400,000 tax, which is due 9 months after you die. No continuances on that. No, hey, we're going to push that out. Request a hardship. Nope, 9 months. Your heirs have to come up with $400,000 to pay the IRS or incur penalties, which just means more money. So that's the hardship in that example. And now, what's the nice thing if you're married, you have your spouse's exemption to use in that scenario. So a married couple, we just say, has $28 million as the threshold for a married couple. Because if you die, you can give over to your spouse your unused exemption. Of course, the reality is you're not giving it. Your spouse has to get it. Your spouse has to claim it. So assuming that they're talking to the right people, they're getting that information, they claim it. So there's $28 million that you have. So anything over $28 million will be taxed at 40% in 2025. That's all going to change in 2026. That means in 2026, then it's going to be cut in half because that's the sunset. That's where we're at before. We're going to go down to $5 million per person plus inflation. If we do the inflation, then since where we were back in 2017, that puts us at about 7 million per person. So effectively, half of where we are in 2025 and 2026. If you are a single person and you die with more than $7 million, then the overage is going to be taxed at 45%, because that's where we were before. So 45%. So my example, with the overage, now for 8 million, that 1 million is now going to be a $450,000 tax. Of course, if you are at the 15 million and now down to 7, well, now you're $8 million over, times that by 45%. So now you're at over $3.2 million in tax. That's incredible. That's going to be a huge burden. We want to avoid that. So a married couple moving forward is now going to be at $14 million. So that threshold comes down drastically. And we live in Southern California in general. This is true. We've got clients everywhere. So I'm not just going to focus where I am right now currently, but from San Francisco down to San Diego, it's not that hard to have over a $14 million estate if you're a married couple these days, based largely on real estate. Many people have more than one property, or they have property in a key location that maybe they bought themselves or inherited from other family members. I know a lot of families, for example, down Newport Coast or Balboa, the peninsula, that inherited properties that maybe their grandparents built. Like they're the OGs. They built the building, and their property, they purchased it or built it, was very, very low amount. Now it's worth millions of dollars. I can think of one off the top of my head. It's $10 million, because 2 lots, and they end up combining the 2 lots, $10 million, and there are a few apartments. And that was built by grandparents, the beginning in the 1920s. So that is a lot of money right there. And they have their own house, right? So easily just in property, they're almost at the $14 million mark, never mind their investments and everything. So they pass away, then their children will have $1 million to $2 million of tax to pay. unless they do some changes. But it's important to know what's going on, right? Is this actually going to happen? Because I hear that a lot. I say, hey, Kevin, is this going to happen? Because this sounds like awful because it's just going to be bad. Because I am that person who now I'm fine. I have a $15 million estate, not a problem under the current status of the numbers. But if I pass away after next year, which I certainly hope, I live a long time, but now I pass away and the numbers go back down and it's still 15 million. Well, then my kids are going to owe $450,000. I don't want that. And that's a small number comparatively speaking to a number of other people, particularly if we're talking about single people. And I single meaning maybe they've been divorced or they're widowed. All right, a lot of that. Now they're sitting on a property. That they've lived on Balboa for all their life, and they're sitting on that property that they bought early on, and then their husband died, and now that property is easily a $6 million property, and then they still have some investments because they invested well, and the wife inherited those investments, and now it's a $8 million estate. Most of that is the home, but that $8 million estate now, because husband died years ago, and in 2012, and there we don't have the husband's exemption to claim. We just have the widow. That widow passes away. She's going to be $1 million over, and the family's going to owe $450,000 in tax right there. So that's not being efficient. So we will touch on a little bit about the strategies you can do to avoid that, but that's going to come later. So if you're on this webinar to learn the strategies, don't worry, I'm going to touch on it. Stick around because we're going to catch that at the end. But I want you to know what is going on and what's happening, because that's the meat of this, because I get that all the time. Kevin, I hear that there's all this rumbling that I read in the paper, so and so submitted this or that. So is this sunset really going to happen, or is there going to be a major tax change again? And I don't have to worry about any of this. All right. So that's what today's conversation is about, because there are members of Congress in the Republican Party specifically that of course, this isn't any viewpoint that I have about politics. It's just who it is, right? It's a Republican senator. Two of them have submitted bills aimed at repealing the death tax. So that's repealing the estate tax completely. So the death tax is the colloquial version of the estate tax. You die, there's a tax, death tax. But that's really interchangeable estate tax. They're saying get rid of it. We don't need it. Go away. Now that this effectively happened back in 2010, it's happened in the past too, but effectively happened in 2010 where there was no estate tax. But that only lasted for about 11 months that year, and then we went back to having an estate tax. So this is really novel ground, novel-ish ground, because there have periods of time like over a century ago, there was no estate tax. But since then, there was only that 11-month period of time, and that only happened by accident, meaning that Congress didn't get their act together. There was a sunset which said there's going to be no estate tax, and then they didn't get around to fixing it for 11 months. But there hasn't been a successful bill that has been passed that killed the estate tax, killed the death tax. This is what is being proposed, is to end the estate tax. So that is what is being proposed. And so that's going to have significant reshaping of the landscape for people that are currently affected because they have a higher net worth. And certainly it's going to reshape the future for those that might not be they don't think of themselves as high net worth, but they have the estate that's a little bit over, like the widow who has the $8 million estate, or married couple who has $15 million. And we're really focused on that being a problem in 2026. That might not be a problem anymore. So how we plan is going to be important. So here's what it is, right? So the push for repeal, what does it mean? Put some names to ideas, names to bills. And those of you on the call, just as I said, I gotta say it, right? I mean, it's on in your minds. I know it. I know it's there. We have how does a bill become a law, right? Schoolhouse Rock. We go down there in the 1970s. This baby face suggests that I was not born in the 70s, but I'm a 70s baby, so I know. So this is what we're going to do here. So the bill has to go in and be submitted by a person in the Senate or in the Congress, right? So Representative Randy Feenstra, he's in Congress, right? He's not in the Senate. He's in the House of Representatives. So he submits this bill. So we have that one, and then in the Senate we have the senator who's actually the majority, the House. See, maybe I need to go watch Schoolhouse Rock again. Senate majority leaders in the Senate, and John Thune, he submitted one, and it says the same thing: kill the death tax. We got two houses, two sides of the Congress saying have bills in front of them that want to end the death tax. The significance of the Senate one is that we have the Senate Majority Leader who has submitted the bill. So already from the beginning, we have somebody in the Republican Party who is in the seat of the majority in power who has thrown his political weight behind this. So, but some people will say, "Hey, well, that's significant. That means it's going to pass because don't the Republicans have the majority, right? Because he's the majority leader. That means they have the majority." All right, we're going to talk about that. We're going to say, I'm just going to say, hold that thought. So don't hit end. Hey, I got everything I need to know. We're fine, honey. No. But right now, I just want you to know the setup. So that's the setup. That's the one everyone's looking at. They're not really, they're looking at Randy Feenstra. Hey, that's political. He did that. Yay for him. And so he can say to his Iowan supporters, his constituents, this is what I did. But really, we're focused on the Senate. So move because that's where the real action on this. And if you remember from Schoolhouse Rocks is that if the Senate passes that, it's not a law, right? Then they have to shift it over to Congress. So Senate passes it, goes over to Congress. Who cares about Randy Feenstra's proposition here? They're going to be voting on whether to accept what the Senate has said. Hey, the Senate blessed it, and now we're going to kick it over. And we want you, House of Representatives, to accept it. And then they vote and they accept it, then it goes upstairs or across the street, across the way over to the White House, and then President Trump has to review it and then decide whether he's going to sign it or not. And then he signs the bill, then we have a new law. If he rejects it, he uses the veto power, then it gets sent back to Congress and they have a go at it again. Of course, if he signs it, then it becomes law. Then we have the Supreme Court who can say, it's unconstitutional or not. Now, of course, the Supreme Court's not going to do that unilaterally. Somebody challenges it in the courts, and it goes all the way up to Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court hears it and then deals with it if there are constitutional issues, which there may or may not be. So that piece happens years later, months to years later. So for right now, our timeline's pretty short. They got to do this business of getting this President Trump to sign the bill before the end of the year, December 31st, obviously last day of the year. Then because Jan 1 of 2026, the numbers change. So if they don't get this done in time, we're going to have the numbers go down. And if you die on January 1st, and they haven't passed tax reform in time, guess what? Your state is subjected to the current law, which says that you only have $7 million of exemption. So, and that doesn't matter if they pass it on January 2nd and it goes into effect immediately. So what we're worried about is them also not getting this done in time. All right, so that's a real thing because remember, I said in 2010, this was the situation. And for those of you who don't remember, hey, that was a long time ago. Scary that was a long time ago, but it's a long time ago. And what happened then, it was a reverse situation. The Democrats were in power. Remember back when President Obama was in office, and the Democrats were in power, and the law said, guess what? The sunset means we're going to sunset into no estate tax. And this was 2009. So Congress had this timeline that, hey, we got to get something done before January 1st of 2010, or else there's going to be no death tax, there's going to be no estate tax, and we don't want that. That wasn't on their platform. But they didn't get their act together. They didn't get their act together until the beginning of December of 2010. So that means if you died the first part of the year, then hey, there was no estate tax. That was helpful, but that changed in December. So that same thing could happen here. The Republicans don't get their act together and don't pass anything until we're well into 2026. And then that could be a problem, of course, because there's good old Murphy's Law, right? That's something we study torts, we study criminal procedure, we study constitutional law, and then there's the law that we don't study in law school, and that's Murphy's Law. But you know what? Murphy's Law is legitimate. It's a real deal. It's just what happens. It's happenstance. It's what happens when we're making other plans. It's Murphy's Law. It's the printer that doesn't work when you need it to work, the car that is out of gas when you need it to run, all those things. The Murphy's Law thing here is that you don't plan for this. Congress doesn't have this act together in time. You go ahead and die in 2026, early on in the year, and we have lower exemptions, and your family gets taxed to high heck. And then later that year, Republicans get their act together and pass the new tax reform, but guess what? It doesn't apply to your family. And so they still have to pay millions, hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars. And the people that have conveniently died later in the year or in 2027 don't. So this is why we need to take advantage of all this. So, all right. So Kevin, great. So these two bills. We understand Schoolhouse Rocks. We understand there's a timeline here, but can you go a little bit deeper? I can. So, and gladly. So this is something that you need to know that's a little bit deeper under the layer. All right, so we talk about estate taxes. I've just been talking about personal estate taxes from parents to children. So I die, me and my wife die, goes to our kids, right? That's one generation. Okay, there's no skipping. So here there's something called generation skipping transfer tax. Sounds fancy. Really all that means is that if you're a grandparent and you want to leave not your entire estate, just any amount of money, inheritance to a grandchild, there could be a tax. And because you are skipping a generation, you're skipping their parent to leave them that money. So guess what? We're going to impose a special tax for that, and that's called a generation skipping tax. Of course, that only counts as if that generation, the first generation, is alive. So if you're a grandparent and you want to leave it to your grandchildren, who are the children of your son, but your son has died, and you would have left it to your son, but he's died, sadly, and so instead you leave it to your grandchildren of the children of that son. There's no generation skipping there, because that is the next generation is now the grandchildren, because they're the next ones that are alive in that generation, in that family line. So so that's what it means, just trying to make it approachable, because that's how my mind thinks. I sound like I can talk really technical things, but really in my mind, I just try to make it really easy for me to remember. And that's it. So here, if you want to, but a lot of cases we have the next generation alive, right? So there's going to be a tax if you want to leave things for your grandchildren. So options are, of course, don't leave anything to grandchildren. Then you don't get this other tax. Well, that's not really fun or fair. Your kids might be all right, and you want to really leave more to your grandchildren because your kids are financially secure, and it's really the grandkids you're trying to set up legacy planning for them and help out with the education, because it costs $500,000 to send a kid to a good private college these days. So the things aren't easy, and so we want to help support that financially, and so we do want to leave it to that generation. I'm not suggesting don't leave it. You can, and what the law says is that, guess what? We can give you an exemption for that too. We can give you the same exemption that you have, the $14 million, you have that for the grandchildren too. Guess what? That's going to lower as well. So as of 2026, you'll have $7 million that you can leave to your grandchildren individually. So if both grandparents are alive, they can gift over $14 million in 2026. And that might be like, hey, that's great. I'm fine. I'm never going to give my grandkids more than that. But for these larger estates, or there's a situation where all your children have died, or maybe you only had one child and that child passed away, and your estate's not really that big, comparatively speaking to others, but now you're over that mark. Example, the widowed grandmother who has the $8 million estate. Her only daughter passes away, and that daughter had three children. Now grandma's going to be passing that over to the grandkids. And so now we have to deal with this generation skipping transfer tax, and their grandkids are still going to get taxed because we're at 8 million and we're $1 million over. So how do we, what's going on here is that the repeal of the death tax is also repealing it here at the generation skipping level. So they just want to say all the taxes, any generation that we would normally do, kids, grandkids, pop, we want to get rid of it. Like that, pop, we want to get rid of it. So that's going to eliminate a huge burden for my grandmother that I'm talking about down on Balboa to other high net individuals. So they don't have to worry about a tax at any level from an estate tax perspective. But like the infomercial, right? Wait, there's more. There's this $10 million lifetime gift tax exemption. Whoa, Kevin, what does that mean? I just thought you said that we were getting rid of the exemptions. We are getting rid of the exemptions at death. Well, let me dial that back. We might be getting rid of the exemptions at death. The legislation is proposing we're getting rid of that, right? That's what they're proposing. Get rid of after death taxes. So, all right, well, we make gifts during our lifetime, right? We like making gifts. We're altruistic. We like to give presents. Who doesn't like getting a present or giving a present, right? It's fun. So we want to do that. We want to do that financially. Maybe we were motivated before to get money out of our estate, but maybe we're not going to be motivated that way anymore because we don't worry about how much we have after we die, if this legislation goes forward. But we still want to give during life because we're still alive. So it's like, shoot, I'm still alive and the grandkids are going to college. I haven't died yet, so I can give them the money. No, we don't think like that. We're like, hey, we're going to give them the money because we're going to pay for their school. Now, remember, if you pay directly for the school, that is not a taxable gift. That is currently still a tax-free gift if you pay the institution directly. We're like, all right, well, the kids, my grandchild's 5, all right, so I could help pay for their schooling now, but I really want to start saving and putting money in a college savings plan of 529. I want to do these other, whatever, you can do that and other things. I want to give them the money now, but safe harbor into investments that are theirs already. I just don't want to earmark it, so I'm going to give it to them. Or I want to give my son or daughter a house. I want to because they're having a tough time in this market getting a house, so we're going to help put that down payment down, get them a house. Guess what? That's a huge gift that you're doing. Or we live in a house and we're just going to add them on title as joint tenants. Guess what? That's also a large gift, right? Because you're adding them. Now, you're not giving them any money to do that, but you added value to them by adding them on as a joint owner. Same with businesses. So our business owner situation is another situation. Well, I want to bring my child into the business. I want to, they've been working here. That's part of our succession plan. I'm going to give them a piece of the business. So that piece has value. So we have to get the business, have a business valuation and figure out how much that piece was that you gave. How much are those shares? How much is that membership interest worth? Because that's a gift. And under our tax laws, it says whenever you give more than $19,000 a year to an individual, we're going to tax you because that's a taxable transfer. Because we're in the transfer tax business here in the United States. We just come up with ways to tax. So we want you to give so we can tax you on it. But there are these little ways to get around it, right? Number one, don't make a gift more than $19,000 to an individual. That's not hard because if you are a married couple, like our grandchildren scenario, each grandparent has $19,000 to give to a single grandchild. And if you have multiple grandchilds, that's true for each one of them. So you can combine, or what's called gift splitting, you can combine that 19. So if it's 19 times 2, because there's a grandma and a grandpa, that's $38,000 you can gift to that grandchild. Maybe that's all you want to do. Great, that's tax-free. That means tax-free and paper-free. So you don't have to file anything with the IRS. Or you're like, look, I want to add my son to title, or want to help my daughter and new son-in-law buy a house. I want to bring my children into the business. That's going to be more. We're not going to do that at $38,000 clips every time. We're going to do a bigger gift. Well, guess what? That still can be tax-free, but not paper-free. We have to let the IRS know with a Form 709 gift tax return. All that is really, these lifetime gifts, all that is really is you have a gift card that the IRS has given you, and it has now this year $13.99 million worth of gifting power. January 1st, 2026, you're only going to have $7 million of gifting power. So you're going to lose roughly $7 million of gifting power off that gift card. Holy crud, that's that's horrible. Well, if you're not ever going to make more than $7 million of gift in your life, combined, and it's combined, so during your life and also at your death, if it's never going to be more than 7 million, hey, you're fine. You're fine. But if it's going to be more than that, or you want it to be more than that, then this is a huge deal. Let's just take your family businesses is worth a significant amount. Family business is worth $10 million, and you want to slowly gift that over to your kids and step away from the business, then that's going to be more than seven. And if you gifted them the whole business, guess what? You're going to have to pay 3 million. You have to pay gift tax on 3 million, and that gift tax is currently 40%. Will be 45%. So hey, I gifted the business, but I owe the IRS millions of dollars. So we don't want to step in it like that. We transferred the home over to the kids, and now that expensive home, my example, the Balboa home, the 2 lots, $10 million, same deal. Now you stepped in it, and you brought the kids in, gave it to them during their lifetime, but now you owe a bunch of tax. So we want to be mindful, but what they're saying is, hey, no death tax, but during your lifetime, we're going to allow you to make big gifts, but you're limited to $10 million. $10 million, that's the limit. So even under the new legislation, there's a lowering of your gifting power on this special, esoteric little card that I'm talking about. Obviously, hello, disclaimer, no one's getting a card, all right? No one's getting a physical card. Please read my lips. If you're looking around going, shoot, honey, did we get the card? No, you didn't get the card. There's no card. No one's mailing you a card. This is all in my analogy, card. All right. So $10 million is going to be the new number. Still, that's a lot of money, right? So we still have some good power in this new legislation. There's going to be again, wait, there's more, Kevin. Tell them about the reduction in gift tax rates. So not only are we going to get rid of the death tax, not only are we going to keep and retain some large amount of gifting power, which for a lot of people, hey, that's great. That still works. Some people are like, that's not good because even under the new legislation, I just lost gifting power. I want to make more than $10 million of gifts. But the gift tax rate's going to drop. Remember, January 1st, 2026, it's going up to 45%. So this new legislation says, let's move it down to 35%. That still sounds like a lot. So this whole attractive business, the words I chose here, attractive for wealth transfer, it's only attractive because it's 5% less. But hey, 5% when we're talking about millions of dollars, that's real money. So that's nothing to sneeze at. So that's important to know. Okay, so we've talked about death tax, tax after death. We talked about gift tax, making gifts during life. Now we're going to change gears and talk about capital gains taxes. Now, capital gains tax is a real problem for everybody. Remember, I said this webinar is for everybody. Okay, everybody, because not everybody, but most people, and certainly I would say 99% of the people that we work with here have highly appreciating assets. And the number one highly appreciating asset is what? Well, I can't hear you if you're yelling it in the screen. It's real property, known as your house. Because we're here, or any other rental property, commercial building, industrial building, anything that's real estate is highly appreciable in California. So we know that's going up. Other appreciable assets, stock portfolio. I mean, there's been a little back and forth about that recently, but we just saw a big appreciation when the tariffs were lifted, right? So that's just an example that prices go up, you bought low, now you sell high, there's appreciation. So that's something we need to look at. So because there's a tax called capital gains tax, most of you know this. So you buy low, sell high, you make a profit, and the government's going to tax you on that profit. And that's significant because right now that's 20%. And also in California, you also tack on the other 13.33%. So really, when I'm talking to Californians, because that's who I'm talking to, or people that own appreciable assets in California, that we're dealing with 33% roughly, 0.33333 repeating. That is the tax that you're going to get hit with on capital gains when you sell a appreciable asset or an asset that has appreciated. So, you sell, people who have sold houses know this. So you bought your house at 500,000, you sell it for 1.5 million dollars. Even if you have the available deductions because you lived in the house, you're single or married. Let's say you're married. Now you're able to deduct 500,000 in capital gains. You still have $500,000 of gains that get taxed at 33%. All right, so that's still a significant number right there. That's almost that's over $130,000 in tax that has to be paid. Yes, I know. I can hear some of the people on this call, because I know you're here. My referral partners, financial advisors, raise your hand. Sorry, can't see you. That are going to like, Kevin, there's a 1031 exchange. Yes, there is a 1031 exchange, but that doesn't always work for everybody, right? So there's still a capital gains tax conversation. There has been one. The Democrats' plan before under Biden was, hey, we want to get rid of this step up in basis business because we don't want the assets to level up when someone dies. We want to tax them. We want to tax capital gains. Well, the net effect of that is not great, right? When you talk about what does that mean? Well, hey, mom and dad bought the house. Remember that house I talked about in Balboa? Mom and dad bought that for $100,000. The house is now worth $5 million. I think my example I said six, so $6 million. Oh my gosh, that's a $5.9 million appreciation. Dad died, and now we just have mom. Mom's living in the house, but she's only going to get, she sold the house, $250,000 deduction off of capital gains. Woo! Yay! What does that get us? That gets us 0.25 below. So, now we're at 5.65. That was good math. So $5.65 million in capital gains tax at 33.333 repeating percent. Holy cow. That's a lot of money just in capital gains tax. And it's going to be complicated to do the 1031 exchange in that situation. So that's a real issue. So, of course, they say, Mom, don't sell the house. Live in the house, keep the house, and you pass away because I know you want to give it to us because when you pass away, there's going to be a step up in basis. And Mom's all on board. She's like, I ain't giving the man a dime, let alone millions of dollars. I want that to go to my kids. That's their legacy. So I'm not going to give up that house until I pass away. So pass away, boom, we have a step up in basis. That means that the measuring stick or the point where the appreciation occurs is now the date of death value of mom. So she died. What was the value of the property then? $6 million. So you get the beneficiaries get the house. They say, we don't want the house. We want the cash. They sell it. No tax. Waiting for mom to transfer it over at her death just saved kids a lot of money. That saved the kids nearly $2 million. So that's significant tax savings. And we just scale that down or up, right? So it's for everybody. So that's important. We want to preserve the step up in basis idea. And so that's what the legislation says. It says, hey, we're just touching death tax. We're changing stuff there. We're changing stuff with this exemption business or lifetime gift exemption. We're not messing with this step up in business basis. We're leaving that because we like that. The other administration want to do that. We're not doing that. That's not part of our bill. So that's huge. This is a great benefit for everybody. So that's important, and it's going to be important because just remind people and yourselves, you want to hold on to what we call low basis assets. So as things that you purchased usually a while ago for a lot lower than what they're at now, and that could be a stock portfolio because you want to transfer that to the next generation. Don't give it to them during their lifetime. Try to give it to them at death. Keep it in the trust or a trust to do that. So that's going to be helpful. So all this all together gives us a lot of good flexibility with our estate planning, as I'm mentioning. So we don't necessarily have to be pushed into doing things. If if these bills go forward and they get signed into law and the law is upheld, then we don't have to be pushed into doing things like we got to get stuff out of our estate because we have too much. We're at 15 million. We got to get down below 7. So we're going to start giving assets away. I don't really want to do that, but hey, I really don't want the man to get a lot of money either. And I want the full value to go generationally. So we need to get assets out. We have to do some more complicated planning. And that sometimes is challenging because I could tell you another client that I have is that they have, they're doctors. They have a larger estate. They had a $24 million estate, and they started making large gifts, and they've done that. But since that time, the husband got diagnosed with dementia. It's rapidly progressing, and he's gone. It's just been a couple years since I initially met with him, and he's already in an assisted living and memory care, and his situation is really serious. And so big bills, over $200,000 a year going out the door for that. And mom's healthy, no issues, but what happens later if she continues to live, she's going to have increased healthcare costs herself. That's not going to be covered by Medicare, and she's got too much income for Medi-Cal, so she's going to have to pay those too. So did she give too many assets away? Or does she have enough? And that's scary for some people. So we want to be able to have the flexibility of not being forced into a situation. So this provides us with that flexibility if the law passes. So, but Kevin, the law hasn't passed. So what do we need to do? Well, we got to hedge our bets. We got to do something just in case the law doesn't pass or doesn't pass in time. So we're not stuck in the Murphy's Law problem where now when we did the wait and see approach, our family got really hurt financially. And hurt financially, of course, there's the bills. You're like, okay, well, we're leaving them a lot so they can pay the government and still have a lot. But the problem is not all estates are flush with cash, right? They're not all liquid, meaning that they don't have a lot of cash available. In order to get cash, they have to sell off things. They have to sell off property that you might want to have them keep or they wanted to keep, but then they don't have the ability to do that because they have to come up with money to pay the big tax bill that you formerly said, I don't care, they're getting a lot, they can pay a lot, they still have a lot. Well, now they don't get to do what they don't want to get to keep the asset you wanted them to keep, like that property in Balboa, or maybe it's the vacation home out in Havasu or Lake Arrowhead, wherever. Or, I got a couple clients got property up in Pebble Beach. Great. So we want to make that's a legacy gift. We want to keep that within the family. They can't. They got to sell it to pay the man. So we got to make sure we're not falling into the chasm of Murphy's Law, the Murphy's Law problem. So we still have to do the planning now to avoid that. A great strategy, just going to throw it out there, irrevocable life insurance trusts. All my fans out there, I hear you. Woo, Kevin, thank you. The insurance and financial people out there are saying that's great. It's true. It's great. It's a great idea. We can infuse some good insurance into your estate. And that's going to provide a lot of savings. You pass away in the Murphy's Law chasm situation, or the law doesn't pass, then hey, what? Your estate's flush with this insurance money that's not taxable. It doesn't increase the value of your estate. It's great tool to pay the man in that scenario. So we don't have to sell the vacation home because the insurance is going to pay the man, and our kids get to keep the vacation home or get to keep the really good passive income earning property that we don't want them to sell. All the things. So, or just do estate equalization. Hey, I don't want any part of that real estate. I'd rather have the cash. Now you don't have siblings fighting each other going, you should buy me out. I don't want to buy you out. I can't buy you out. Well, I want to be bought out. And you don't have any of that, right? So the ILIT, the Irrevocable Life Insurance Trust, ILIT, is a great solution. That's just one of many. Just one of many, but that's something that we're talking to a lot of clients about this year, because that's going to help us preserve more wealth for generations. But the law will help us do that. So if this law passed, that will help us do that. We can do that without the law. As I just mentioned, one of the ways that we can do that right now, if we're kind of, hey, we're in a wait and see, we're in that middle zone, we're not married and we have more than $7 million, but we're not over the 14, or we're married and we are certainly not over 28, but we're over 14, and maybe we're in that uncomfortable wait and see zone. You don't want to get slapped, or you don't want your kids or grandkids to get slapped with Murphy's Law, and the Murphy's Law problem. So we want to infuse cash and assets into your estate after you die. That's only going to be beneficial, particularly with property. And this is not about Prop 19. We'll talk about that again. But this is not a Prop 19 webinar. But the reality is, now we know we want to give that vacation home to the kids. There's going to be a property tax reassessment. How are we going to pay those? How are the kids going to pay those bills? Are they going to have to sell the house regardless because now they can't afford the higher property tax because there was a reassessment, because there's no longer a parent-child exemption. So key in here is, if you might be, there's still some people I talk to like, oh my gosh, I thought there was an exemption from a parent to a child. No, Prop 58 died, and it died February 16, 2021. And that is the day that Prop 19 took over. And it says there is only an extremely limited situation, and that involves a child moving into your home that was your primary residence. And even then, there's still an increase in tax, most likely. But that's the only occasion in which there might be some reduction in a reassessment. Otherwise, everything's getting reassessed at market value at the time of the death. So our Balboas, our peninsulas in Newport, to our Pebble Beaches, our A-list places, our La Joillas, all that, and tons of other places that are expensive, that have high appreciating assets. Mom bought it 100,000. Guess what? Mom's paying 10 grand a year at most in property tax. Now she passes away and leaves it to the kids. There is getting reassessed at the $6 million fair market value. Now kids are paying 60 grand. When I say 100,000, no, they're not. That doesn't work. Does that work? 10%, 10,000. That's 10%. No, I was right. So now the kids are paying over 60 grand for the property tax. That delta might not be affordable, right? And so they sell the property. We see a lot of turnover in these areas recently since 2021 because of that. So, but if we had an insurance policy funding the estate there, boom, we don't need to pay the man, or we have enough to pay the man, and we have enough to give the kids investable money to generate money to pay this property tax, this larger property tax bill over the years, so they don't have to sell the property. See, flexibility. Flexibility is important, and these are the concepts that we work with clients on a day-to-day basis, so that they're covered no matter what. No matter if we have the bills being passed that are going to revolutionize the estate taxes, or if they don't pass, or we're in Murphy's Law scenario. All right, so the things. Oh, this slide. Let's see. Oh yeah, how can I forget this? So there's this resolution. All right, so this resolution. So I just think I got everyone through this whole thing about here are the bills, and we did the School of Rock and all that stuff. A School of Rock, Schoolhouse Rocks. Great movie, School of Rock. Watch it over the weekend. It's fun. Jack Black, all the things. But Schoolhouse Rock. These are bills. These are bills that have to be signed into law. There's this other thing, just to confuse the scenario, but want to make it clear for you so you understand. At least you can sound smart at cocktail parties or the backyard barbecue. Budget resolution is not a bill. Budget resolution is not a new law. Budget resolution is a budget resolution. So another strategy being proposed, and at least the House does it, is we pass a budget resolution. So our budget for the government to pay for itself through taxes. So how do we have to deal with income and expenses in our budget? So one thing we deal with is how to generate that income, which is through tax. We are going to do away with certain taxes. So we're gonna focus over here to get the tax money, and not so much over here. So that's where tax cuts can come in, and the budget resolutions, which is, historically what happens is with the parties and Congress argues about it until we get the news that, oh, guess what? Government shut down. Government's going to come to a screeching halt if we don't pass this budget resolution, because then we're going to run out of money, and then the government can't work with no money. right? Well, who wants to work for no money? Well, then it's, then it's free, and then it's pro bono, and that's not happening, right? So we've gone through a number of cycles of that over the just our lifetimes, but really it seems like a lot recently in the last couple administrations it's been more frequent. And what's just happened is that they agree to kick the can on down the road. They don't really make any lasting concessions. They just kind of cobble something together for now to get us to the next one. And we just go through these cycles. We just get us to the next one. So, but that's the budget resolution process. So part of this is the Republicans are saying, we'll do the how to make a bill. We'll do the Schoolhouse Rocks, how to make a bill strategy, and propose two bills and move there. But at the same time, we're going to do this little strategy here on the side, kind of as a hedging our bets, and we'll pass a budget resolution in the House. And we'll say, we ain't going to accept any more of this estate tax business as income. We're going to do tax cuts because we're also cutting expenses. So we don't need all that money, right? We have all that going on. We all know that. We hear the Doge doing all sorts of tax cuts, or I mean, expenses cuts. So they're cleaning house on the expenses, which means they don't need as much income, so that can justify them making the tax cuts, right? So they're proposing not to have an estate tax there. So they're not going to need it. So, but what's going to happen? They have to get the Senate to agree to that, right? So Schoolhouse Rocks did not cover was this budget resolution, right? So we're going to do a little revamp on Schoolhouse Rocks 2025. Kevin's bringing it back, and we're going to do the budget resolution. How does a budget resolution pass? And that's what we're doing here. So Senate has to agree to it, just like with the bill, right? So what does that mean? That means right now we have things floating out there as maybes, maybe this, maybe that, maybe this, maybe that. There's no sure thing, like I mentioned, no sure thing. So it could be that things stall, right? If things stall, then that's a problem. So if the Senate does not approve the budget, then it's going to stall. And that budget resolution strategy is going to die, crash and burn. Now on the other side, that same thing can happen because back to Schoolhouse Rocks, the internal process is, of course, these bills go through committees, and the committee reviews it. So they have like a micro little committee that really centers in on the bill and goes through all the consequences and ramifications of the bill and really iron things out. And then if it comes out of committee and the committee approves it, then it goes back to the floor to say, hey, we ran this through our scrutiny here with the committee, and they said, here it is now. And along that way, in the committee, things change in committee, right? So we can see some changes in the initial proposals, even in that process. So what comes out for the floor to vote might not look, will look different than what was proposed, right? It might be big changes, might be little changes. It could die in committee. That happens too. It's like the committee just gets log jammed and they get no movement on it and they lose interest and it just dies. And so it never comes out of committee. So there's still all of that to happen, which is why I talk about the delay. It's not because they're sitting on their butts not doing anything. It's because there's a whole process and there's a lot of these things going on at the same time and different priorities, and priorities shift. And I don't know if you've been paying attention since January. It seems like the priorities shift on a daily basis. And that's just the way things are. Again, no commentary on politics. It's just observations and facts. It seems like every day there's something different on the table. So what is the focus? What is the focus du jour? Is it still on this? And I know that's happening at the executive level, but that's also happening at the legislative level. So we have competing interests in what should be priorities. That's also how things die in committee too. How things die on the floor. We have people that can delay a vote. And that happens, sometimes as well. So that's a way that there can be a delay. We have some concessions that can happen. So that's why this is too early to predict. So concessions, I said that there's a Senate majority of Republicans, but there's like 5 of them that could go the other way on things. They're not fully bought in to the party line. So that might be enough to tip the scales because it's a very slim majority. So we need to look at this as this is not a done deal. Just because we got the bills on there is not a done deal. Doesn't surprise me. Anybody in the know looking at this, it's not like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. No, we knew this was going to happen. Like, it would be strange if it didn't happen, because Republicans have been talking about this for years, and now that they're in a position to do it, they're going to do it. All right, but now we have to wait and see how it plays out, right? Because now they could flop, and those senators don't agree, and never comes out of Senate, right? And the senators don't agree. It comes out of the House of Representatives, but the Senate doesn't adopt it, because these five have killed the bill. Maybe not for the bill's reasons, but for other reasons. They don't agree with some other stuff that's going on. That's where the horse trading comes in. And that horse trading can be real on other issues. Some of the other issues that are of importance in the taxes are your SALT deductions. So your state and local taxes, the acronym SALT. So if you have a $10,000 cap, so if you have a mortgage interest, property taxes you can deduct, but they cap it at $10,000 in the aggregate. Used to be able to declare all of it. So if you had a mortgage on expensive property, you can have $30,000 in interest, $60,000 in interest, mortgage interest. You could deduct that as a line item deduction, huge tax savings. They said, not going to do that. And they gave a huge haircut and said 10,000. So part of the other things that are being talked about in Congress, Republicans want to raise the SALT deduction to 20,000, or even get rid of it entirely, be back to where we were before. In order to garner enough support for that, they might have to do some trading and say, hey, we're going to not pursue everything in that death tax repeal bill, and we don't know what that is going to look like. So there's going to be some back and forth. There's other things, other initiatives, other things that haven't happened yet that might come into the negotiating. So that's what the legal and political challenges, roadblocks, and things that can alter what seems to be, oh my gosh, the Senate Majority Leader proposed this, and there's a majority in the Senate, so therefore the Senate is going to approve it, and it's going to go to the Congress, and there's a majority there, and then it's going to go to the president who wants to do these things, and is going to sign it. Not a problem. Oh, and the Supreme Court, yeah, was appointed. Majority of those justices were appointed by Trump. Not a problem. Any constitutional challenges, ain't going to happen. So there is that thinking, that linear thinking that's out there. You hear that, like, this is a done deal, man. Don't worry about it. But they're not realizing all the other spin-off variables there. It's too early to predict. That's what my great Karnak's hat's saying. It's too early to predict. Too many other crazy things that could happen out there. You might as well just shake that magic 8 ball and see what comes up, and you're likely that's going to be your best guess as to what happens. So we need to keep our finger on the pulse, and we'll do that this year, and we'll be coming back to you with more information as things progress, to give you updates about, hey, this is what happened, this is what we think. But I tell you that if you want to take advantage of some of the strategies to avoid being in that Murphy's Law zone, those take time. So we want to get in front of that before you're in Murphy's Law zone and trying to cobble it together. It takes time to do, months to do, because we might have to include a business valuation to understand the amount of insurance we might need, have to get insurance qualified. All that stuff can take a long time, months. So we want to get in front of that. Also, if you're above the numbers, make no mistake, I plan now because that Murphy's Law, you need it now. You die now this year, boom. Hey, we got a long time. We got months left in this, majority of the years left. And the Murphy's Law situation is something bad's going to happen when you don't plan. And so you die unexpectedly now, and you have over a $28 million state married couple. There's a tax now. Same with over a $14 million individual. There's a tax now. So we got to get that planning done and right quick. Because if we also want to make big gifts, then you're losing gifting power at the end of the year. We just got to assume that, because that is the current law. So that's how we're going to stay informed about legislative developments. I'm going to tell you. And oh man, I came so close, guys. 61 minutes that I was talking. But really, I started that maybe 2 minutes before I started talking. So we'll go 59 minutes. Woohoo! I did it. Land the plane. So a lot of stuff here, guys. A lot of stuff. I encourage you, if you have follow-up questions, we'll take some now. But if they're super specific to you and it's going to take more than a few seconds to answer, then contact us. Happy to meet with you, have a conversation. There's me. We have Elizabeth Connolly on our team. She has an LLM in taxation. She's another lawyer. So there's two lawyers that can talk to you at this level about tax stuff. So make an appointment with us, and you either talk to me or Elizabeth, and we'd be happy to help you. So.